What is going on, everybody? Welcome in to the North End Podcast, episode 15. This is the end, I guess. The end of year 2 and the end of year 1 for us, but the podcast rolls on. I'm Zach Graham, your host here on the North End Podcast, alongside my good buddy, on record as my best friend. It's Ian Michaud, a.k.a. Lae James, a.k.a. Sebastian Drew Easy, a.k.a. Eastradamus, a.k.a. Mr. E. E, how you doing?
I'm well. I'm doing well. We've processed everything that happened yesterday, and I feel good, despite what anyone else would tell you to think.
Yeah. I mean, it's I think disappointing is a fair way to categorize it, right? Like, I think anybody who's listened to this podcast watched the game yesterday, or at least watched the highlights, or saw the score, and no matter how you took in the result, you can tell it wasn't what the Austin faithful really had in mind. Obviously, everybody wanted to win, but I think a little bit more competitive would have made us feel better today. I really don't know. I guess we can, we'll figure that out over the coming weeks. And I do look forward to kind of this week in particular, listening to all the other pods, listening to the people that I have some respect for on Twitter, which is not everybody, obviously.
Gonna have to pay for it soon.
What's that?
You're gonna have to pay for that respect on Twitter soon.
Oh yeah. Golly. But yeah, man, it's we'll obviously the energy level. I think I'll be impressed if any of the other fellow Austin FC pods, outlets, what have you, can muster the typical energy that we've had throughout this roller coaster of a season, because there were so many more ups than downs.
For sure. Yeah.
Looking back on it, but we got to do this one more time for 2022. Austin FC versus LAFC in the Western Conference Final. Yesterday, we're recording this Monday night, Halloween night. So happy Halloween to everybody. Hope everybody stayed safe. Had some fun trick-or-treating, Halloween parties, dressing up, whatever. I saw some costumes out there in Los Angeles for just a giant traveling contingent. I guess we can start there, E.
Yeah, there was some good costumes. That guy who wore a ref costume and was on the field. that was the winner for me.
Well, we'll certainly talk the official. I think the estimated number of traveling Austin fans, I think, was 480.
Awesome.
I may have that wrong. I may be inflating that number, but all I know is that the number was much larger than what the ticket allotment was, in terms of the official tickets that were given from LAFC to the Austin. Well, I guess we kind of learned a little bit about that in the previous round, right? It appears that the tickets go to the Austin front office and then are passed down after they take the ones that they need. And yeah, man, from Saturday, obviously we were watching from afar on social media, but Los Verdes looked like they had a great time out there on Venice Beach on Saturday, playing some pickup futsal out there, party the night before at one of the bars or breweries out there, where I think that was where a lot of the videos were coming out of, the typical night before chants on the road and things like that. And just overall adding to our anticipation here at home, I think, especially with that game being so early out there on the West Coast. The 12:18 p.m. local time kickoff did not affect LAFC in a negative way. I don't know if we can attribute the early start to any sort of negative outcome or effort or what have you on the Austin side, considering local time in Austin, we started a playoff game at the exact same time 2 weeks ago.
True.
Although I guess you could say we didn't perform that well in that one, too, the first round either, even though we did come out on top. So jumping into it, and I'll say their lineup changes, even though Gite's stuck in the lineup there, just because I think anything outside of that 11 that we were used to really from like July through mid-September, that feels like a change for me.
That's our change.
Right. Yeah. So we had Rigoni in there for Finley and Musa Gite up top for Maxi Urruti. And I wanted to get your thoughts on this, E, because obviously you and I were, for the longest time, very much on the Rigoni should start. We need to get this guy out there, that train. And then over the last few weeks, I think we kind of slowly but surely came around to, I think we feel a little bit better if Ethan Finley is out there to start the game. And then boom, we see Emiliano Rigoni in the 11. So I guess before the match, how did you feel about that change? And I guess you can bring Musa starting into that as well, because we know how we felt after the fact, but if you can harken back to before anything happened in that game, how did you feel about the changes?
I was fine with them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel like I've probably been more so in the camp of Rigoni 60, Finley 30. I think that's been my position. Mm-hmm. And even with that position, he played terribly. Mm-hmm. He was not good. And what makes it worse is that, he chirped a little bit about LAFC.
Yeah, he did.
Before he got here, and let this be a lesson to all young footballers, athletes, everything. Just keep your mouth shut. There's no reason to talk about another team like mm-hmm. that. Especially when you're not playing in the game. Of course, you're not scared. You're sitting on the bench. You're not doing anything. And I'll tell you what, he looked scared in that game, frustrated early. He seems to be the most frustrated quickest in that mm-hmm. game. Mm-hmm. And it was almost right from the kick where, mm-hmm. It wasn't like we had been stifled for a really long time before we started to take some pretty questionable foul calls.
Yeah.
Pretty
questionable in the sense that the officials shouldn't have called them, or questionable that we were being like overly physical, or like
questionably that we were taking frustration fouls.
Gotcha.
And they look worse because they mm-hmm. were out of frustration and not in natural flow of the game.
Right.
So yeah, no, he played poorly, and I'm still going to defend him. And I was totally fine with him starting, but it is what it is. He did not play well. I don't know if Maxi makes any difference in this game starting him. I don't think so. Mm-hmm. I know that I said I would have liked to have seen Musa and Rigoni subbed at half. Mm-hmm. That did not happen, and it wouldn't have changed shit anyway, in my opinion. Maybe that ball doesn't bounce off Maxi's face, but the outcome of the game was not dependent on those subs there. We were outclassed pretty much from the kick. So I don't know how much the lineup impacted that game. It was more so what they did to Seva.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about it, right?
Yes.
I think the first kind of notable, and I guess I'll say this on the rewatch, and I told you before we hit record that I did not have to watch the full 90 minutes here to remember, right? Like, even though we were having a good time yesterday, and we did, shout out Brian and Mike, came by the house for a little watch party. We grilled out and everything. Of course, our boys, Jose, Guillermo, Ashley, AB's there, Wemby's there, terrorizing folks, It was a fun day regardless, but I think our best, the only time that I thought Austin looked at all competitive in this game was like the first 15 minutes. And that might be putting it nicely. But
I think that's putting it nicely.
In the first 10 minutes.
They should have scored like 2 goals on us.
We'll get to that in a second. In the first 10 to 15 minutes, there were, and I won't say, there were not like Austin chances, but they were putting more pressure on the LAFC defense. They were possessing the ball more in the LAFC half, and the game was up and down the field. It was very loose. It was very fast. And And like ultimately, I don't think that's where Austin FC wanted to be this game, but it's where they started, and it's just odd to me now looking back on it that was when we looked what I thought was our best. And again, our best in this game, nowhere near what we're used to from this club this year.
I mean, if we're comparing it to the ball literally never being in their half almost the entire second half of the first half, then that's a bright spot for sure. I agree with you though. We definitely looked, it just nothing was actually working. It looked like it was like, okay, like this is a nice little build up and then bink, and then we lose the ball.
Yeah. You know? And it like, again, we never threatened.
Yeah, no. Did we take a shot in the first half?
No shots on net in the first half. No, I think we had one shot. I think.
I mean, we only had one shot on goal.
Yeah, and I think that was in the second half, right? And
that header, right?
Yeah.
But
like it starts crumbling. Like I think it was around 12th, 13th minute when the first time that Stuver comes out uncertain to the edge of the box. And this was the first time this happened, like I said, and ball, like the long ball is coming in for, and like I guess we should say LAFC was just bombing long balls.
Absolutely.
And their wingers, Chicho was playing like out on the left, like on the wing, and just making these diagonal runs off the long balls. And Austin was struggling. And like this is like one, like I'm not going to say we haven't seen Stuver like misjudge a ball or a pass before, because of course we've seen that, especially with how much he has, like how much responsibility he has on the ball in Wolf's system. But like this seemed unique to me, where like Stuver was shaken by that ball that like it drops like right to the edge of the box, right?
Yeah.
And he comes up and he knows he's not going to be able to put his hands on it, so he kind of knees it. He's out just outside the box when it comes down, and he knees it out wide enough where he's able to recover and guys catch up. But like, I think that was the first point where all of us really looked at each other in the living room like, oh boy. Yeah.
It definitely left him on uneasy footing after that point. And I mean, obviously we weren't there. We don't actually get to hear how much they're communicating on the field, but that looked like it was the first of many miscommunications throughout the game there. Just a fortunate kind of bounce that's like too far away for them to actually capitalize on it. But yeah, it didn't stop coming after that.
Yeah, the LAFC chances just fast and furious after that point. 17th minute, Cifuentes gets the ball in the box right side, just pretty much one-on-one with Stuver, and bangs a shot. Gets past him, but hits the post and bounces back out. He gets his own rebound and then ends up like trying to put it in, and he fouled Ruben, like luckily, because he was still like in the middle of three of our defenders and still getting the ball, winning it. And again, like I said, luckily Ruben draws the foul there. But 12 minutes or 11 minutes later, I should say, the second shaky Stuver decision at the edge of the box. This time Buanga's on the run, and Buanga actually gets around him. Like Stuver just doesn't get a touch on it. And Buanga like almost takes a touch, like not too dissimilar from what Driussi did on his goal last week against Dallas, where he touches it out wide, right, and creates that space for himself. Luckily, Julio Cascante sprinting back, he still got the energy at that point of the match to actually fully sprint back. And he blocks it, and then when he blocks it, it goes off of Stuver, who was retreating quickly, of course, and it goes off of Stuver and out for a corner, which if Stuver was like 2 feet to the left, that might have gone off him into the net.
100%. I don't even know if it needed to be 2 feet. It very well could have ricocheted off him into the net.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was.
It was coming, right? Like the.
Well, no, I knew it. Yeah, once that one went off the post, I was like, "Shit, man! Like, they're really, they're here. They want this." And yeah, here it comes.
Yeah, and so on the ensuing corner, like watching the replay, it was I think our first we'll say Chicho Arango connects with the corner, heads it, slots it into the backside of the net or near the back post. He was being marked by Musa Jite, and I think that was the thing that kind of, us in our frustration watching as fans at home, we were like, how is Musa Jite marking Chicho Arango?
Yeah, couch coach.
Yeah. And watching the set piece back today, I was impressed. Like, we've been really good off set pieces, obviously, set pieces and those second balls.
Them
right?
too. We're the top two,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, so that's what I was going to say is that, watching this back, there was like 5 guys, including Arango, making various runs. And whether they were like threatening runs or dummy runs to draw our defense to where they wanted us to be, it was Masterful's maybe giving them too much credit, but like it was a great play. It was a very well placed cross. And hats off to Arango for finishing it. And when he gets a chance, like a player like that who gets a chance like that against Musa Jite should finish, and he did. So credit to him. And I think that's almost an overarching theme for me watching this game back is sometimes you just got to credit the other team for being better on that day.
I have no doubt in me saying the better team won.
Yeah.
Yesterday, without question.
Yeah.
Superior team won. They played better. That they're more talented than us. They're deeper. I remember multiple times yesterday just commenting on how much physically larger they were than us. And they tooled their team up to go win a championship this year.
Yeah.
We found ourselves in a surprising position of success, and kind of teetering that line between do we go for this, try to move all in on some pieces, or, are we building something, larger for the future and things like that. But
right.
I agree. They were the better team. They played better. They executed better. There was really not a single facet of the game that we outplayed them in.
Yeah. That's fair.
It is what it is. That's the game.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It happens.
One thing that I think just kind of highlights that maybe superiority. Superiority is accurate, right? The one thing that highlights them, like as a club compared to us, and again, like part of this is that Austin FC is still in its infancy. Not necessarily compared to LAFC because they're only 5-6 seasons at the most. I think 2018 was their inaugural season, so they're a very young club as well. And I think it's a model to try to that is where we need to strive to be as a club in
for sure
3 years, right? And Anthony Precourt, if you hear this, I know we're not the only person to say this, but man, I hope you are not bluffing with the continued investment into this club, including shelling out for the best roster we possibly can at all levels of the club, academy, next pro, senior team, because that's what you look at this LAFC team and the stat that they put up yesterday. 30 different players played for the senior team this season. Yeah. And you need that depth to go through a 34 match regular season and a knockout postseason. But on top of that, we got Leagues Cup next year, which is minimum 2 games. We got US Open Cup, minimum 1 game. And then now we got CONCACAF Champions League, which we'll talk about later. Maybe the one positive out of yesterday, right?
Yeah.
But so, again, just highlighting, how much further along this LAFC club is than we are. We're not that far off. You look back at their second year, we didn't quite come, they won the Supporter Shield their second year. I believe. And we were right there, right? We were in contention for it with 6 matches to play in the season. So we're not that far off.
For sure. I agree. And with that very interesting rumor we saw today about Inter Miami.
Yeah. We should talk about that later.
Yeah. It is much more of becoming an arms race.
Yep.
So I agree. I hope just like Rigoni shouldn't have said that shit about LAFC beforehand. I hope Precourt isn't just bluffing here.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll talk about that for sure.
Hey man, as long as we see our beers on the field and not physically, but like that money, right? We're gonna spend as much money as we do, and not just us, all the fans. Whether you're buying beers, you're buying water, you're buying food, like as long as we see that quality product on the field, I think we'll be relatively happy and satisfied with where we are, at least in the near future. So after the first goal, that's when, and you alluded to it, right? Like the frustration really started to show through after the first half hour. Nick Lima gets a yellow card in the 31st, followed by Rigoni, who you mentioned, 34th minute. He gets a yellow card, and that was. Did they check that?
Call was bullshit.
On Rigoni?
No, the Lima call was bullshit.
Oh,
the Rigoni call was justified. Lima got fouled beforehand.
Yeah,
and he was the second guy, and they always get the second guy.
Mm-hmm.
Rigoni, well deserved on that yellow. That was just one of. I mean, he had been somewhat reckless.
Yeah.
Before that.
Well, and he was reckless after it too, because like from the broadcast angle, like bottom left of the field, right? So defending in our half in the first half, to Stuver's right, and I think it was Cifuentes or Maria. Somebody wrapped up Rigoni, right? Like almost brought him down to the ground, and there was no call. And then he went and definitely fouled. I forget who he fouled, but he fouled the LAFC player that was then next to him where he was brought down, and he got called for it.
Was it Palacios?
Yeah, you may be right. But yeah, it was again like I thought, and we were talking at half, just amongst ourselves. Like I thought after the first goal went in, a lot of the Austin FC players started focusing on the officiating, whether or not they thought they were getting a fair whistle, and like trying to give cheap shots to the LAFC players because LAFC was so physical and just like you said, using their size advantage, their strength advantage, their speed advantage at pretty much every position. Like obviously Driussi is an elite player, one of the top 3 players in the league at worst, but like when you have a team that's so deep and so talented like LAFC, and their game plan was clearly built on taking Driussi away and not letting him get the ball at his feet, like not dissimilar from what Austin did to Jesus Ferreira in the second round last week, because you noticed later in that Dallas match where Ferreira was dropping back deeper, and some of that probably has to do with Franco Jara coming in up top, but also Ferreira wanted to get touches, right? He wants to get involved in the game, and you saw that from Driussi in the second half where he was dropped. I think it was either you or Brian commented, like, look how far Driussi is dropping to receive the ball here.
Yeah, and we were starting so far back. Our attack was essentially starting right behind right behind half field.
Yeah. And I don't know, man. It felt like that 10-minute span after the first goal to me really felt like we lost our heads. And you were calling for subs at half, and I think my thought was, I hope we don't have to sub at half, and that the coaching staff can impart on these guys, like, stop worrying about that other shit.
Yeah.
You can't control if you're not as big as Murillo back there. You can't control if you're not as fast as Chicho, right? You can't control if the ref doesn't call a foul and you think it should have been called. We got to focus on the task at hand. We're only down 1, right? And I thought we were lucky to get into the
fortunate.
Half.
I mean, I said if we can get out at 1-0 at half, we should feel pretty good about ourselves.
Yeah, with how bad the first half was.
But we did crumble right after that first goal.
Yeah, at least mentally.
Mentally, yeah. It looked like we stopped trying to execute the game plan.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of just like lackluster cross-field balls that just were inevitably short.
Yeah.
And also being sent to much shorter players.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't get a long ball over Hollingshead's noggin. I guess it's an odd phrase if you say Hollingshead's head, but you know what I'm talking about. Like, we could not beat that guy.
No, him and his mustache.
Yeah, it's a strong stash.
Well, good.
41st minute here before the half. Again, like the chances continue to come. for LAFC. Murillo plays a gorgeous long ball to Vela, who gets in behind really easily. And this is where I thought, Ian, the 41st minute, this is where I thought Stuver turned it on and turned back into himself. Great save here by Stuver off the Vela chance. 2 minutes later, Arango working with Cifuentes at the top of the box, finds Cifuentes with some space. Cifuentes takes a touch to his right, fires one towards the right post, and Stuver, another great save, deflects it out towards the sideline. And so, again, like you said, we get into the half 1-0. And with the prospect, again, of like, if you can bunker and not give up another, and just the one or two chances that we thought we might have in the second half, right? Mm-hmm. You convert one of those, you get to extra time, and who knows?
Yeah, you get lucky. Our window, our window for winning that game was very small. We had to be perfect on the very few chances that we thought we were going to get. We ended up getting less than we thought, and we didn't think we were going to get a lot in the first place. And maybe you get lucky. Maybe, you have a cross and the ball ricochets off your own player's face. And,
right.
We're talking, exactly. I mean, that's the thin line in these games. And when you're so far behind, the class level, sometimes you need that. It wasn't our day.
No, it was not. There was a halftime change on the LAFC side. However, Ibeagha comes in for Chiellini to start the second half, which, I thought they got everything they needed from Chiellini. I was not excited to see him in the starting lineup. And it's crazy that somebody like Sebastian Ibeagha is like the fourth string, because Eddie Segura was out, and I'm pretty sure that's their typical starter, especially before Chiellini came on. The fact that a guy like Ibeagha is their fourth, and like ours is Kip Keller. And we have a lot of love for Kip Keller. Mm-hmm. But again, that just highlights the difference in depth between the two clubs.
We can love Kip, and he cannot be there yet at the same time. Yeah.
Absolutely. There wasn't like the first 10 minutes or so, fairly quiet. Carlos Vela did pick up a yellow card in there, which I thought was warranted. On that foul. Shortly after that, 57th minute, Hollingshead up in the attacking third, little give and go with Cifuentes. Or I should say receives the give and go from Cifuentes, and Hollingshead gets in on goal and blasts a shot towards the upper 90, and Stuver, another great save.
Yeah.
He did, it could have been 5, 6 if Stuver did not turn it on. And I think that's what he did. Like, as crazy as that might sound, right? With as bad as helpless as it felt watching the game, as disappointed as we were after, I thought Stuver had a fantastic match after that first 20-25 minutes where he couldn't make decisions.
I agree. And the ball off of Maxi's face is not his fault.
Absolutely.
The weird spiraling ball that bounces over a player's head, lands awkwardly, and then a dude rips a 10 out of 10 screamer with his left foot. That's not his fault either.
Yep.
And I'm not going to say that this game was a 1-0 game, because it wasn't.
Right.
It's the same principle as, people who think they're close to being billionaires when actually they're much more close to being homeless. We were definitely much closer to losing 7-0 than we were to, a 1-0 loss there.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you. Shortly after that, Hollingshead chance, another breakaway for LAFC. This time they find Arango out on the left, and this is where I mentioned Julio having the juice to fully sprint in the first half. Did not seem to have it here in the 60th minute. And Arango, again, one-on-one with Stuver, and a great Stuver save. And I guess if I'm ranking the Stuver saves that we've talked about, this was one of the easier ones. I didn't think Chicho did a great job with his chance that he had.
He should have made that.
Yeah, but again, man, I'll continue to credit Stuver, because we don't have many other people to credit from this one.
Okay.
So I think I'm not sure if it was actually off that corner or not. I think the ensuing corner happened after Arango, and they got another corner because the eventual service on this second goal comes from the other corner, from where Stuver deflected that Arango shot out. But between that and the second goal, subs. Maxi Arruti for Gite, Finley for Rigoni. So, I think we could see those coming from a mile away.
Standard.
And this is a question I had. Again, like we say pretty frequently here that we were not born and raised soccer guys, like totally clueless, but we're not soccer lifers in terms of fans or certainly playing. So, just from a coaching perspective, does it make sense to you to make subs during a set piece? Because I was questioning that this morning, like thinking about, like when I'm looking at the minutes for this game, right? 61st minute, Finley and Arruti come in, and then I'm on that corner, I'm pretty sure. And like that doesn't seem like the ideal move to me. And maybe it's just easy. Maybe it's easy for me to like pick on that moment because the ball went in the net on the next touch.
Nah.
So you think it doesn't matter at all?
Oh no, I mean I don't. Obviously, that's not. That was just a freak kind of accident there.
Right.
I don't know. I'm also thinking about that now. Maybe it's like you can then bring that guy in and you have all those players like close together. You can get some information out. Some sort of like positional changes that you want to see or something straight from coach. That's something that maybe is advantageous there. I don't know.
It's not hockey. We're not running subs while you always got a sub on a dead ball, and like, I don't know, just like it's not a 1-to-1 comparison here, but like in basketball, there's an argument, I would think, in coaching circles. I don't think I know, it's like where 5 seconds left in the game, right? You're defending an inbound. Mm-hmm. Do you put your 7-footer out there to guard the ball or to try to deflect a tip-in attempt? A 7-footer who hasn't played in a half or the full game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, are you, as a human, are you able to be locked in enough to perform at your best when you're cold like that? And obviously, again, it's not a 1-to-1 comparison. These guys have been warming up. But it's tough for me. And again, I may just be picking on it because of what happened. But that was something I was thinking about this morning on the rewatch. Just like, is that the best time to sub? I don't know. So I just thought I would bring that up.
Okay, fair.
So as we alluded to, as everybody saw, unfortunate bounce there off the ensuing corner after the subs. Carlos Vela swings it in. It goes over like 3 or 4 players on both teams who were jumping at it, and it misses all of their heads and goes off Maxi's face. And if he turns his face the other way.
Yep.
But we can't, you can't say that. Like, no, he wasn't ready for that ball to hit him. And it was just a instinctual reaction to turn your face because the ball's coming straight at it rather than, he could have done something else there. At least that's how I saw it.
I mean, I would imagine he lost complete sight of that ball.
Yeah.
I bet
being on the backside of that group of people.
Yeah, I bet his line of vision was I guarantee you that he could not see that ball until it was about to hit him in the face. And yes, he just did a normal human, I have to protect myself reaction.
Yeah.
So
own goal. Yeah, I mean, and I honestly, I hope, and we'll talk on future pods for sure about free agency decisions, what we think should happen, or what we want to happen, what we think will happen, etc. But I really hope that's not the end. I hope that's not the last play, right, for Maxi Arruti.
Yeah, for sure.
Because I don't think he's clearly not going to be somebody who's like long for the club or like the league, just because he's an older guy. But he gave us so much this year, effort-wise, culture-wise.
Yep.
And obviously second leading scorer on the team. So yeah, I felt bad for the guy. Still feel bad for the guy.
Shit, yeah, of course. Also, Maxi, you're not listening, but don't hang your head. That was clearly not your fault. The game was not your fault.
And also thinking about it like this, like again, like you said, that game, no matter what, is probably not ending 1-0. But they were in the 62nd minute and it was 1-0. So it's not like the game to that point as right, like the underlying numbers said that it should have been at least 2-0 at that point, probably.
Yeah. I mean, as we've alluded to all year, it's a fickle game, and you can be beating the shit out of somebody and just not get the ball in the back of the net. And so we were in it till the 62nd minute. I do think we kind of recalibrated at halftime. But it
wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough.
67th minute. I mean, this is if we have one point in the game where we have a legitimate gripe, it's here.
Yes.
Really nice pass actually by Nick Lima, who had darted in from the right sideline. He receives a ball from the back line and takes a touch or two, and then finds Diego, who was cutting from the left side into the box. Diego receives the pass a step or two inside the box and takes a touch and looks like he gets tripped up, goes down. Play continues. And then after about 15, 20 seconds, the call for VAR happens. I think we celebrate in the living room, right? And I think a lot of Austin fans were probably thinking, well, when the ref lets the play continue and then Atlanta gets in his ear and says, hey, you need to look at this.
Yeah.
Typically, that means there's going to be a foul awarded. And then you see the replay, and it's like, well, yeah, it's a foul. Like, you look on the replay, and Ibeagha just stomps Fagundez's foot. And I think the explanation that we're going to see from the officials, if an official statement hasn't already been made, is that his touch was going away from the goal.
Does that make it not a foul?
That was my question. Is it not still a foul in the box that deserves a penalty shot? And everybody I've seen, and this includes the Andrew Weebies of the world, the blue check marks, right? Who better get ready to open up their wallet.
That's right.
Those blue check marks, seem to be agreeing. And I will also agree with Weeby specifically because he was essentially like, it was a foul. PK should have been given, and it would not have changed the outcome. And I agree wholeheartedly.
That's
that.
My exact sentiment as well.
But again, just like we said about with the game still being 1-0 in the 62nd minute, if Driussi is able to see the ball go into the net on a PK, it's 2-1.
Yep.
Now, all the pressure is on LAFC. And again, there was no indication in the other 89 minutes of this match that Austin could have gotten anything going. But you would like to make it 2-1 and again, see what happens, because when you get the chance to mix it up in a crazy sport like this, in a knockout scenario, crazier things have happened, right? And so I think that is something that you would hope the league wants that back, right? That they would own up to the mistake. And again, we can't do anything about it now, but I would at least like to say, or like to hear from them, hey, yeah, like we messed that one up a little bit. Because again, like from my point of view, it didn't change the outcome of the game.
Yeah, don't hold your breath. No, I that's exactly how I felt about it. We didn't lose the game because of the ref.
Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah, 100%.
It was a foul. Fact.
Yeah.
Does it change the rest of the outcome of the game? No. Fact. I don't know. We would have had some juice. We would probably been feeling pretty good about ourselves. And unless they completely just lost their fucking minds because of that, it wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was 100% a foul. I'm pretty baffled as to how I briefly remember them maybe talking about how he then planted his foot after.
Yeah, it's like, okay.
But I was like, well,
because he was running.
Foot, man, gravity, he's got a step. He just so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, to me, that's clearly a foul.
Well, again, even if you don't come back, right? Then if Seba scores, it's just more fuel for the Driussi fire. Like, he would have had 4 goals in 3 playoff matches. Like, I don't know. It was just again, the one bright spot we could have had was just taken away, and it was the wrong call. That was one of the few calls all day that I thought was like, I thought the outside of that, I thought the official did okay. Maybe lost control with the physicality for a little bit there in the first half, but Austin had just as much responsibility on that craziness in the first half as the official.
I agree. And we did not lose the game because the ref, and I mean, shit, the goalie could have saved it.
Yeah.
I could have missed. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't take away from the fact that it was a penalty kick.
Yeah.
Whatever happens after that happens.
100%. Yeah. Couple more things to hit on before we move on. 81st minute. Defending. Ball's kind of ping-ponging around in the Austin half. Diego, almost like a frustration slide, like slides in to kind of just clear it out of the muck that it was in on the near sideline from the broadcast angle. And that ball just kind of deflects towards the Austin net. And when it lands, there's, I think it's Opoku and Julio running after, or Gallagher. Regardless, the ball lands near the right edge of the top of the box. And the spin that's on it is almost like a professional golfer,
pool, someone who plays fucking pool, like this.
Yeah. And just like a very fortuitous bounce for LAFC. But then after that, like Opoku took the chance and ran with it. Just great finish by Opoku there. You mentioned it earlier, and then because that shot was the shot was high quality. And there was nothing Stuver could do to save it. Like, he went back across his body. Stuver was moving from left to right, and the shot came to his left. So 3-0 there. Maxi Urruti picks up a yellow card. So I guess maybe that's the last we see of Maxi Urruti, is picking up that yellow going into the book. Own goal and a yellow card in the conference final. 95th minute, LAFC actually puts one in the back of the net. Dennis Bouanga, who was giving us fits all day, didn't get on the score sheet, right? But is just the difference, bro. The difference between him and Gareth Bale on the left compared to what we saw from this team, they're so much more dangerous. There's so much more cohesiveness, right? In this, he's
a bad dude for sure.
I envy what the LAFC fans have there and what they have to cheer for, and it's not a knock on us. Again, that is a club to aspire to be on that level.
Absolutely. And again, we're not far off.
I mean, and just from a wide view as we close out the final recap here of the 2022 season, again, just to highlight those diagonal runs on the rewatch from the long balls, and also just from if Vela or Cifuentes found themselves on the ball in the attacking half, the runs and the balls on the ground too. It was just, they were testing the shit out of our back four, and our back four did not. They weren't up to it yesterday. No.
They were not.
We'll touch on XG, everybody's favorite stat till it's not. And looking at this XG, I think it's pretty accurate. 2.14 for LAFC, maybe a little low considering all the chances they did have and Stuver saved. But I do think, right, the Maxi Urruti goal is just lucky. And so 2.14 felt like a 2-0 is what it felt like. Should have been the right score.
Okay.
For how much Stuver battled after the 40th minute.
Yeah.
And there's nothing Maxi can do about that. It's just so and you remember I was up getting a drink, I think, and I looked down and the ball was in the net.
Yeah.
And so I didn't even see till the replay that Maxi had knocked it in. 0.27 XG for Austin.
Seems generous.
It sounds about right. like anything more than that, you'd be from what? When? Where?
I don't know when.
22 shots to 7. Only 4 shots inside the box from Austin, which we well know is where that's their bread and butter, right? High percentage chances in the box. And so to only have 4 shots in the box was, you're just not going to get it done against most teams. Much less a team like LAFC.
We would not have beaten many teams if we played the way we played.
Yeah.
But also, I don't know if many teams could make us look like that.
True. That's true. Yeah. There's, I think, them, Philly, NYCFC, and I think we can get that's another point, because I watched that Philly NYCFC Eastern Conference Final last night. It was a fantastic game. But
Nice.
watching our game early in the day, watching that game in the evening, Austin FC was the fourth team out of 4 in terms of total talent. And it was pretty clear yesterday. Again, I don't think that's a knock, right?
No,
Like, think about what we're comparing them to here.
Yeah, this is a sensitive city, but no one take that personally.
Sensitive fan base too,
Yeah,
right?
this is a sensitive fan base. We're touchy. But come on.
It's, I mean, again, it's no knock to be the worst team out of LAFC, who Supporter Shield years ago, Supporter Shield this year, the number 1 seed. Philadelphia, historic defense, historic scoring in a lot of their games, like the 3 6-0 wins or whatever it was, and a 7-0.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a juggernaut. And then NYCFC is the defending champs, and obviously they hit a road bump with Tati leaving, and I believe they had a coaching change between their title last year and where they are now. But that team got hot, and Sean Johnson is likely going to be, I think, the men's national team keeper here at the World Cup. And then you look at Austin FC's got nobody on that national level, right? Like, we were talking about fucking Washington Carozzo trying to get on the Ecuador team. Like, we don't have the the horses, so to speak, compared to these other teams.
For sure.
And that's okay. That's where we got to get to pre-court. And it's a big offseason, I think, for Claudio Reyna. We'll leave the offseason talk for another pod, I think.
Okay. I'm good with that.
Again, that Eastern Conference Final, NYCFC scores first. Maxi Morales, who has been just awesome for them, especially over the last 6 weeks or so, takes them up 1-0. And then in the span of 11 minutes, 3 Philadelphia goals to put that one away. Wow. Philadelphia at LAFC for the MLS Cup Final. I believe that game is this Saturday coming up out there in Los Angeles. So that will be a good one. I think our plan is to roll out a little bit of a shorter pod later this week and preview that match. Again, maybe not a ton of interest from our Austin FC friends, right? But I think it's something to still be locked into for you and I, at least, and talk to your buddy who's an LAFC fan. I've got a buddy who's a big Philadelphia Union fan. So hear from them what they think about their season, what they think about Austin this season, right?
Yeah.
And talk a little bit about the final, because, you know, it's we're in it now, right? We were not paying attention to this last year.
I think Austin FC fans should have an interest in this game.
Yeah.
LAFC did what they were supposed to do to us. I don't think we should try to minimize what a Herculean effort it would have been to beat that team 3 fucking times in one season and then go into their place again in the Western Conference Finals and get a win. You know, the people who are throwing pebbles at us are throwing them from beneath us.
Losers.
Yeah, they're throwing them from beneath us. You know, LAFC handled their fucking business. Hats off. No matter what happened with the ref in that game, whatever, the penalty kick, they beat our ass. It is what it is.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone is, invest. And again, like you said, no knock in being the 4th best team out of these 4 teams. Yeah. And if you got knocked out by the team that wins the cup, okay.
Yeah.
There's only one for a reason. They only give out one a year. So yeah. I mean, we talked about it right after the game. Nothing but gratitude for this season. All of the moments that it provided us, the incredible comebacks, the deluge of goals, for some games. Testing out that vocab word there.
Yeah, there you go.
So, there's so many things to be happy about, so many things to be looking forward to with this team, so many things to be looking forward to in regard to the league.
Yeah.
The Apple TV deal coming. I don't know, how many people are privy to the news that we talked about earlier this morning with Inter Miami, and we can get into that, but we are coming along. And I was thinking about this, earlier, because obviously there's a lot of disdain for Austin FC. There is. And it's the same thing. Like, y'all should be happy for the league in general.
Yeah.
Can we be, obnoxious and maybe not know what we're talking about all the time? Yeah, for sure. But like,
Especially you and I.
We're good for the fucking league.
Mm-hmm.
And, we're here to stay. Yeah. Like, we're going to have to retool in the offseason. We know where we want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's just a matter of if we go and do that, and you and I don't have any control over that other than buying 30 Dos Equis every game.
Yeah.
It's just a hell of a season for the club, for the supporters, for how much the team grew. We still have the record for most consecutive sellouts.
And that ain't stopping.
No, the season ticket list. If you want to get on the list, hurry up.
Yeah.
Get on there.
You're late. You can still make it.
You already missed the first train, friend.
Years, but yeah, I mean, and I think, and I think you would agree with this as well. Like, congrats to LAFC on the Western Conference title. Obviously, they got to lift. That was one thing I didn't even think about. Right? Is there's a trophy for Western Conference? Like, we could have lifted a trophy last night, but they deserve the win. They have a great team. They have a fan base, again, that I think we admire. There's always shitheads, idiots, morons in every fan base.
Yeah.
But from everything I've seen, anecdotes from our own fans traveling out there, not just for this game, but for the first ever match last season, anytime people have gone out to an LAFC away match, overwhelmingly positive interactions from everything that I've heard. So, and then again, echo what you said, right? Like, just an insane season from our team.
Yeah.
And much thanks and appreciation to the players, the staff, everybody involved, right? Just for the ride that we got to go on this year, from the first two matches scoring 10 goals to the just lowest of the low, I think, for you and I leaving that San Antonio match, to everything that happened during the summer, right? The win streak, Copa Tejas, LAFC, the set, like, sweeping them in the regular season, the struggle during September,
hitting that wall,
and making it to the Western Conference final. Like, it was, man, if we have another season like that in the next, like, 5, I think we're, like, as we sit here right now, we'd say, oh, well, maybe that's a disappointment. But, like, if you're being real, like you said, there's only one cup given out. There's only 4 teams out of the 28, and we're growing. We got 29 next year, and it looks like we're going to 32 soon. Making the Final Four is awesome. So,
totally agree.
Players, coaches, all those guys, keep your heads up, right? Like,
yeah, let's take a look at that. Let's take a look at that game film, and let's see how they took our best player out of the game, and let's make sure that doesn't happen again. Yeah.
Well, this is a group, right, E, that just demanded the respect of the league this year.
Yeah.
Took it. Like, you have to respect this team.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's great. But, and then, like, so another thing to think about this offseason, and I know we said we were going to leave offseason talk for later, but now there are real expectations. And we were talking about that already last night after the match, right? Kind of sitting out on the porch, grilling some burgers and stuff after the game. Like, what is the new baseline? And we'll leave that for later, but that is something that's going to be a pressure. That's going to be a weight on the shoulders of this team going forward. And guess what? If you're a good team and a franchise that is consistently competing for cups and titles and first round buys, etc., you're going to have that from here on out. So get ready.
So let's stop teasing this Inter Miami news and let's.
Yeah. So, I mean, and there's not much to cover at this point, I guess, right? Outside of just like our own thoughts and what it would mean for the league. But reported this morning from, I believe, Bleacher Report or I think it was The Athletic, actually.
Credible.
Maybe both. Yeah. I mean, blue checks, right? Before you can buy one. And then Tom Bogert saying that it's real. I mean, you trust that mustache anywhere. So yeah, I mean, if Lionel Messi ends up in Inter Miami next year, watch out, man. Like, obviously it could go one of two ways, and it could end up being a Hector Herrera, right? A Gareth Bale, where he doesn't come in and is like fully bought in, and it doesn't end up making a huge difference in the grand scheme of the league. But then if he comes in and he's like playing, right? Yeah. Like, and even you don't have to give up on a guy like that super quickly in the MLS, because you look at what Higuain was doing when we played him, and he was benched after that by Phil Neville and ended up being, I think he won Comeback Player of the Year. I think.
Oh, shit.
I may be mistaken there, but he was really good, and a huge reason why Miami turned it around. I think they were winless in their first 5 matches and made the playoffs as a 5 seed, I think. 6 seed, I think 6 seed, but still.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on?
Can you imagine?
What are your thoughts on Messi potentially teaming up with those Miami guys?
Man, that'd be fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I would love for them to come back to Q2, right?
Yeah, right. I mean, Miami's not. I've heard it's not a bad place to visit.
I would. That is a road trip we could make next year.
I've heard it's not. I've heard there's some good things down there, actually. I don't know if you've heard that, but I've heard it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, can you imagine what it would mean for the league? You know, like, I mean,
there's always going to be people who poo-poo the MLS.
That's okay. That's fine with me.
Yeah, but there's a reason why these types of players are, whether they're rumored to come here, they do come here, or whatever. Like, this league is growing really fast, and the popularity is soaring as much as it may not feel like it, just because in this country you're up against NFL, especially like during the playoffs when you're up against the NFL on a Sunday. Like, tough. We got to fix that, fellas.
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, imagine how many more people we're bringing in, after this World Cup.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Going to have the bug right then and there, I mean, I know Austin is going to be alive and well with places to go watch games. And
we'll be out there.
Yeah, we'll be out there. And I mean, like you said, it's going to continue growing. And these high quality players are going to keep getting younger and younger.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, fuck, man. Ricky Pooch. I mean, he's like not even in his prime yet,
And he's like the best name to say.
Insigne. Not super old. He's young.
He's
so that'll be obviously something to watch, and I'm sure names not as big as Lionel Messi, but some recognizable names will show up in Austin FC rumors sooner rather than later, I think. And it'll be interesting to see, as a club that's avoided that through the first 2 years, when that wall, so to speak, gets broken down and we do bring in the big name that maybe makes you a little nervous. Is he here for the right reasons? Is he going to go? Is he going to like it?
Yeah.
In this, very different environment in the sport they grew up playing. So again, all off-season things to look forward to I should say. And speaking of things to look forward to, that schedule ain't staying blank for long, because with that Philadelphia win last night, Austin FC is in to the CONCACAF Champions League 2020.
Go, baby.
And the draw, is a week from tonight. November 7th. So we will know our round of 16 opponent. And just real quick, let's talk about how this works. The draw will use what they call a double-blind system.
Oh, that's good. Single blind.
Yeah, that consists of 4 pots, and not the pots that all of our traveling Verde fans were on in California this weekend. Just pots of teams. Pots 1 and 2 contain the names of all 16 clubs, right? 8 in each. Pots A and B will contain bracket positions for the round of 16. The draw starts by randomly selecting from pot 2, followed by pot B. So Austin FC is in pot 1. So we will be drawn in the second go round, right?
Okay.
That's obviously process goes forward for the entirety of pot 2 and pot B, and then they go pot 1 and pot A. Each round of 16 matchup will feature one club from each pot, obviously, and no more than one club from each country, which means, clubs from the same country cannot face each other. So that's how the pots are determined.
Okay.
If you look in the pot that Austin FC, is in, contains Vancouver Whitecaps, LAFC, Orlando City FC, obviously Orlando City winning the Open Cup, and Philadelphia Union. So 5 MLS teams there. And then pot 2 is only one Liga MX team. And then the rest teams that we're going to have to do some homework on. That one Liga MX team E, we've seen before, Tigres.
Okay.
Which would be obviously, I think, for those who benefit financially from this tournament. I think that's probably the matchup people want to see, Austin FC and Tigres, because I guess continuing on down here, these the 16-team tournament, right? All of these matchups are two-legged at each stage. So whoever we match up with, we're playing one home and one away. And so obviously the Tigres matchup would draw a giant crowd to Austin. And
that'd be awesome.
A pretty sizable Austin contingent going down south of the border as well. Historically, though, we don't want to draw a Liga MX opponent in the first round. Again, they have owned this tournament until this past year. 14 years we've been in this current format for CCL. Liga MX clubs have won 13 of the 14, and it was 13 in a row until the Sounders took it down this past year. So the other two zones, the Caribbean zone gets one team in, and then the CONCACAF League zone, which I believe is like all the leagues in Central America, they get 6 teams in.
Okay.
No team from the Caribbean zone or the CONCACAF League zone has made a CCL final. So the 8 teams, and boy, am I going to butcher some of these. The 8 teams in pot 2, so our potential opponents, obviously I mentioned Tigres, but then Alajuelense from Costa Rica.
Well, there's no way you didn't get that right.
We'll have to call Julio Cascante and double check my work there. Alianza from El Salvador, Motagua, Olimpia, Real España, all 3 of those from Honduras.
Cool.
Taro, that's from Panama. And then Violette, I apologize to fans from that fine club out of Haiti.
Sweet.
Yeah, so
wow.
Could be some really cool matchups, I think, right? Teams that we would just never think that we would play, especially in a match that matters, right? Like these are maybe teams, obviously we've played 3 friendlies against Liga MX clubs, and I think I've gone back and forth between Liga MX and Liga MX in terms of what I'm calling the league in the last 5 minutes. But so we'll know who we play in the first round next Monday. So we'll cover that on next week's pod. And then we do know the schedule, or at least the date range for these games. Round of 16, so those first matches, March 7th through 9th will be the first legs, and the second leg of the first round, March 14th through 16th. So a week apart there. And then the quarterfinals are in April. The semifinals are last week of April, first week of May, and the final legs are May 31st and June 4th. So that tournament will be done by June 4th, potentially adding 8 matches to Austin FC's schedule. Sitting here now, before we know what happens with the roster, tough to say Austin FC would make a run that deep, but you never know. And the fact that we have 2 guaranteed games there means 39 matches at the very least, 2 CCL, 2 Leagues Cup, and the U.S. Open Cup. But yeah, man, obviously, like I said, the schedule gets populated with 2 matches next week. So it's there's no rest really for us here with that draw happening. Then, of course, the World Cup coming up in a few weeks. We'll have plenty of discussion about that. And like you said, going out to various spots, checking out some watch parties, etc.
Yeah.
And then we've got, then it's our season in terms of like you and I, right? NFL playoffs, NBA's rolling. Like we'll
Yeah.
definitely get into some of that stuff on these off-season pods. And like I said earlier, really excited to do some fun, hopefully creative and entertaining off-season Austin FC content over the next couple months. And over that time, I think we will probably get roster decisions. I've seen a lot of the other teams that were out before us make roster decisions very quick. Like it took RSL, I think it was like less than a week, maybe just over a week after they lost in Austin in the first round to make all of their cuts, their options, pick up or decline, etc.
Okay.
So we'll get that. We may have stuff to talk about roster wise next week.
Cool.
And then obviously free agency, the draft, which will be less intense for Austin this year. We have like a 20-something pick, not top 5 anymore. So probably not pulling a Danny Pereira or a Kip Keller out of this super draft, but it'll be fun to watch and cover a little bit.
Yeah,
regardless.
It will be fun.
So outside of that, man, obviously, like we said earlier, we'll be back later this week talking a little bit, previewing a little bit of the final, bring on some of our buddies who are fans of those two teams that did make it to the final. And then maybe talking some other stuff too. There's a lot of, I know there's some Spurs fans in the Austin FC community. Obviously, E, that I'm a diehard. And there's some things happening around the Spurs. And maybe we get into a little bit of that.
Okay.
And, I see your eyes going up. I'm just saying they're 5-2. We're not supposed to be winning. Maybe there's some other stuff to talk about.
Everything's bad.
Yeah, it all sucks. Anything else from you, E, before we go ahead and get out of here?
Just thanks to everyone who was tuning in and rocking with us throughout the season here. We had a great time. Hope we provided you with some good moments, some fun moments. Had some laughs with us, and I enjoyed it, and it was a fucking fantastic season, all in all.
Yeah, I don't think I really have anything to add, or could say it better. The last 3 months that we've been doing this podcast, 3 months or so, has been awesome. And like getting even just a little bit of feedback and interaction from other Austin FC fans is awesome.
Yeah.
That's like we were talking with Brian and Mike, right? Like last night, like that's what we want out of this. We want to make connections and just continue to like enrich everybody's experience if we can, like even just a little bit, because that enriches our experience, you and I, right?
For sure.
And as season ticket holders and big fans, and like you said a couple weeks ago, like you're not a guy with teams, really, and over the last 2 years, you are now a guy with team. At least I'll say that.
You have to change my name in your phone.
Yeah. Well, you're still an NBA theist. No NBA team. All right, everybody. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll be back later this week, and we're excited to go through this offseason with you all. Follow the show, Twitter at The North End Pod, YouTube at The North End Pod. If you're listening on YouTube, subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. Helps us grow the channel, grow the Austin FC community. If you're listening on your podcast app, wherever you get your podcast, if you got 5 seconds, leave us a review. Hopefully 5 stars. And hit subscribe there as well. We appreciate everybody sticking with us, not just on this hour and 10-minute podcast, but throughout the last 5 months or 3 months. Geez Louise. I think I got to stop talking now. For Ian, I'm Zach. We'll talk to you guys next time. Until then, Vamos Austin FC. Goodbye.